Feeding tennis balls. Almost every day I tell juniors there's no such thing as a bad feed. Well, there's some truth to that at a competitive level. But when you're teaching beginning players, you want to make sure that you feed the ball in a manner that will allow them to grow and develop. Now, parents, don't be intimidated by feeding. If you can go to the park and feed the pigeons, you can feed tennis balls. Now, like anything, there's an art, there's a progression to feeding. I'll go through 3 coaches, for example. Vic Braden. He has his rapid fire feeding. Protect yourself behind the basket, always watch your students, and then just go just like this. Now you can go very, very fast as well. We call it rapid fire or Braden feeding. Low toss, just like a drummer with a drumstick. Doesn't work when you go this way. Now, when you just feather it, nice and easy, you keep the ball low. Every ball, 3 characteristics: speed, spin, trajectory. Trajectory is what makes the ball bounce low. Most players don't get the racket head below the ball, so you feed the ball just like this. Let them turn, let the racket free fall. You can have them bounce, let the ball bounce twice. But then if you just want to be like a human ball machine, you can feed fast. If someone's up at the net and you don't want them to swing on the volley, just say, all right, let me feed you 3 balls. All right, let me have you practice maneuvering that racket up at the net. I'll feed the ball forehand, backhand, forehand, backhand. Now, with Harry Hopman and Robert Lansdorf, very similar in the way they feed. They're going to give you the toughest feed possible. They're going to get close to the net and hit a heavy slice like this. They're going to hit a heavy top. They're going to drive the ball flat. They're going to make you move. But they're going to try to give you the most difficult shot. Parents, when you're first starting out, when you're going to the park, and especially early childhood development and working on basics, you don't need to have that type of feed. You don't even need to feed off the tennis racket. Coming back to the Braden type of feeding, you don't have to be a tennis player. If you watch a champion player, a championship player, a world-class player, when they take the ball and give it to the ball boy, they just go like this. So you can feed very easily, just like this, in this position. Now, Nick, come on up here for a minute. Okay, so Nick's just going to show us, why don't you hit an underspin backhand? It's just a self-fed ball. Okay, now do that again. Want to have him have a spot on the court where he needs to hit the tennis ball. Just having someone drop hit a tennis ball. You're going to pivot. You want to work with the pivot. They're in this position. Their center of gravity is up. Their posture, they're tall, they're square. You just let the ball roll right off your hand like this, in this position, this way, and then make the hit. Now, for Nick, okay, stand right there on the tee line, turn for your topspin backhand. I just want to come over here and drop the ball. I want to drop it way out here where the contact point is, and then again, just repetition. Lift up on better balance, turn this way. But what will happen with a player who's working on technique, you say, okay, get a partner, and the partner comes over and throws the ball to Nick like this. It won't work. He's going to get too close to it. So you want to try to give the ideal feed, the perfect feed, close to perfection as you can when someone's working on technique. Now, just to stand right in front of a player, now Nick hit a forehand and a backhand, say corner to corner, 195 times. Is a mile. That's where you got to get a basket of balls. It's not a conspiracy. Kids can practice. And I think a better term for a basket is a bucket. Well, how many buckets of balls do you do? In this basket, there's about 300 tennis balls. 300 tennis balls. In the small baskets, there's about 90 tennis balls. You want to know how many tennis balls you're hitting. We have players feed all the time. Nick, if you grab your basket, what happens to teaching pros, I call it teaching pro-itis. They get a continental grip and they end up feeding, and it's not too good for their forehand. But now Nick's, he's going to put his left hip on the basket. Now we have visitors come all the time, and it's interesting to watch and tell some juniors to feed a tennis ball, and right away you just know they've never fed a tennis ball. They stand on this side of the basket, and they feed like this. They go to grab the basket. But if you're right-handed, you put your left hip right on the basket. Now, what you want to do is have these players work on their forehand. So Nick, show us how you're going to feed a ball. Okay, if he can hit a drop hit ball, they want you to do that first. Just off the bounce, drop hit a ball in that position. So now he becomes a human ball machine. Okay, now what I want you to do, make sure you have the racket face closed. This time, let the ball bounce. Then there's rationale for doing that. Now this time, hit the ball in the air. You just take time away, plus now he has to let the racket free fall. I certainly could have someone, have a partner, say, okay, you're going to run and hit backhands down the line, and I could have Nick just practice his feed this way. Just grab a basket of balls and just practice his feed. Repetition. So again, there's so much about feeding, but parents, keep in mind, all you need to be able to do is be able to feed pigeons. All right? You talk a lot, you get thin lips. Make your kids run. Obviously, you're spending so much time talking about technique, but tennis is a game of movement. So feeding a tennis ball. Nick, if you go to the other side of the net. And from one idea, you get more ideas. Okay, Nick, if you come up and hit a forehand volley. Okay, I'd like to have both players do this. It's called tap feeding. Nick, you're going to hit a stop volley, and I'm going to tap feed. Okay, now hit, hold, too hard. It's going to go between you and me, and I'm just going to do this over and over again. We do baseball tennis all the time. Now, Nick, if you move back, he's going to hit a forehand. We make a game out of it. Move up a little bit, hit a forehand softly. It lands between myself and the basket, and I work on my throw, and he hits it right to me. But I'm going to work on this in this position. So there's so many ideas we have to share with feeding, but that's a few to get started with.